Hello and welcome to Enterprise Tech Spotlight. My name is Keith Hales and I am the host of our podcast. And the main thing we try to do on this podcast series is help business leaders who may or may not be technical learn more about the technology systems and processes and features and all those other things that are out there so they can make better decisions within their business and about the technology that they're choosing to invest in so that their business can be more successful. So today, joining us for now this third podcast is Tony Owens, who is a senior solutions architect at one of our partners, Aero Electronics. So Tony, thanks for joining us.
Keith, thanks for having me up again.
Yeah, absolutely. So one topic that I think you're pretty excited about, I was really excited about the last one, so this is kind of your time to shine, and that is containers. So it's a word that I've heard a good bit of, but to the average, I'll say non-IT person, when I say containers, they may think of shipping containers. They may think of Rubbermaid, Tupperware, containers are going to put my leftovers in. So in the technology world, what in the world is a container?
Good question. So I guess the simplest way to explain it is to kind of go back a little bit. So we had physical servers. So you take a physical server, you load an operating system on it, it's got all your componentry in it, and you load an application on it, and it's self-contained. It's a physical server. And then we found that, that was really inefficient because the processor and memory that we could put into a physical server allowed it to do a lot more than just that one thing. So we virtualized the server and we ran many virtual machines or many instances of operating systems on there. Containers goes that next layer of saying, well, why do I need to load the operating system? I just need certain tags into the thing to connect to the network or into this piece. But all of my stuff that I need is in here inside this little bit of space, whether it's a web application or whether it's a database or whatever. So why do I need all the rest of that? I can run as a microservice within that system, and that's kind of what a container is. It says separate out the operating system and all the other physical stuff and just bundle in my piece of the pie here that I need for my application, and that's what I'm going to do. And because I'm this little bundled piece now, if my workload increases or the number of users that I need or the demand increases, I can spin these up rapidly in any environment I want to. So that portability and expandability of it. And I can give you a great example of where probably the most popular one that most people who have kids would know was Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go was a completely container microservice application. Depending on the number of users that would connect in at any given time, they could spin up containers of this, as many as they needed to support the environment and stuff.
So I heard a lot there. I just want to kind of break it back down to be sure I heard it correctly, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. So a container is kind of one thing. It is the next step of making the service or what we're getting out of it instead of an operating system. We're making it more efficient, right? So you used to have one server on one physical server.
Well, and
then you had virtualization, right, which kind of made that more efficient. And now we're even kind of breaking it down more to where we're only running the stuff we absolutely need. Is that another way to say it?
Exactly. So, but when VMware, what we did was we said, okay, I want to run multiple operating systems on this one server. Now we're saying, well, I don't really need it to be an OS. I'm not really concerned about the OS. I really don't care about what the OS is as long as it's, container enabled, Kubernetes and all that. I can run multiple containers underneath there, and it doesn't matter whether it's on a power system in the cloud, which cloud it's in, whether it's on Intel servers from HP or Dell, we don't really care. I don't really care what the operating system is.
Okay, so let's take that. So that's a great technical explanation. So I want to go back to the kind of the business value of what you're talking about here. So I heard more efficiency.
Right.
I heard I can move it around.
And scale.
And I can scale it up quickly.
Right.
That sounds pretty good if I'm a business guy and I don't know a lot about technology. That sounds like three pretty important benefits.
It is. And it's really, when you look at kind of the development side of things, when people are doing development, that's
like
really
software development
and stuff and application development and stuff. That's really how they're kind of gearing it for. They're not concerned with the infrastructure. They really don't, you have to have the infrastructure to run anything. But that's not where they want to operate at. They want to say, you'll provide me whatever I need for my application. I'm focused in on the application side of it. And now I need to write and make my application efficient and scalable to be able to meet the needs of wherever this will go, whether it's, like I said, a web service, a database, and the ability to change it. So before, when you think about doing changes into a normal infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I've got patches that I've got to do. I've got to schedule maintenance windows. I've got to do all this. With containers, it's like I've got 1.3 version of it running, and I'm going to deploy 1.4, kill 1.3, 1.4 starts running immediately, and I deploy as many of them as I need. I've done all the testing and stuff ahead of time, and all my persistent data that I needed is still there. This is just the new application front end for it. So it gives them very fast ability to change with where the market's going.
Man, these are features galore here. I mean, we've got all kinds of benefits coming out of this. So I think the value proposition matters, but I do want to go back to one thing that I think people who may not be technical, didn't follow all of what you just said, may have a question. Well, wait a minute. You know, they may ask themselves, I already invested in VMware.
Correct.
Wasn't VMware supposed to give me some of these things? Or VMware is not the only one. Some kind of virtualization layer, right? You know,
right.
Not picking on VMware, it's a good product. But haven't already invested in this before. I feel like some of this might feel, you know, like a story I've heard before. How is this different?
We'll be back with the Enterprise Tech Spotlight podcast after we pause for this special message. Have your IT projects created stress on your team over the last few years? More than half of IT professionals say they are burned out at work. IT departments are under constant pressure to keep systems running while completing IT projects on time and under budget. And they often report that they're understaffed and underfunded. InfoSystems is now offering free IT project review sessions. Kick off your 2020 IT projects the right way. If you're planning or considering some type of IT project, software, networks, servers, storage, phones, and want to get an unbiased and accurate understanding of the skills, time, and cost required to make it happen, this is the perfect first step to take. Our expert project team will help make sure you don't miss important details, waste money, or overestimate your capabilities. Visit the InfoSystems website at www.infosystems.biz to request your IT project review. Now back to the podcast.
So it is a little bit, and it even, you know, we talk a little bit as well. You know, IBM kind of did the same thing with storage virtualization, right? You know, I want to separate that physical dependency on you know, whatever my storage is in the back end for what I'm presenting out, and virtualizers like VMware and Hyper-V and other products as well did the same thing. I need to separate the physical of what a physical server is, the number of processors, the number of cores, the number of memory, because I may not need all of that for one application. I need to be able to separate that. And now we're saying, you know, from the container side of it is, yes, but I don't need to have multiple operating systems. So I don't want to have to deploy a server for my database, and I don't want to have to deploy a server for my web server, and I don't want to have to deploy a server for this. Those are just applications or containers within the overall OS. So I've got the operating system running that gives me all my connectivity to my infrastructure and all that. And these are just services that I'm basically deploying as containers within that OS.
So it sounds like it also simplifies the environment, because that operating system layer, you know, the Windows Server 2012, 2016, whatever's running, isn't required anymore for all these different systems.
Right. These little containers are basically they have everything in them, and they have the libraries, if you will, to connect into whatever the OS is, the open source libraries. They'll say, here's how you do the network calls, and here's how you do this, regardless of as long as it's a container supported platform, then I can reach in and do that and stuff. And so it's from your standpoint, it's kind of a continuation along where we went with the virtualization of the server environment and stuff. So this is kind of like we said, it's that next step into it.
So, all right. So that makes perfect sense to me. I guess kind of my next question is, all right, so how is this going to impact all the investment? You know, if I'm an IT guy, whether I've moved everything to the cloud and like all my servers are now running AWS or Azure, or maybe I've invested heavily in local servers. You know, I've got lots of servers, lots of SAN storage, all this other stuff. what's the impact on me if I start evaluating or maybe moving down the path of containers? Is this one of those rip and replace? Like what's going on here?
Actually, it's actually more of a benefit to you, because the great thing along the lines is separating that physical aspect of whether it's a Unix or a Linux or a Windows or a whatever. Once I separate from that physical server platform type of thing, and I've got it as a container, now I can deploy or develop my containers wherever. So you may see people doing development in the cloud and then wanting to deploy it on-prem and stuff. And then it may be, well, like we were talking about AI the other day and stuff, and maybe my AI modeling does better on a power system with some of their architecture versus an Intel side. So I want that portability to move it. And I really don't want to have to be worried about whether it's in the cloud or on-prem. I want the ability to scale and use. So from that customer who's already made the investment in on-prem or has started making the journey to cloud, it's going to help them simplify that because you're going to separate that application need from that physical side.
Okay. So the impact on the current environment is I get to continue to leverage whatever investment I've made, but as I move things to containers, it gives me that flexibility to run it wherever I need to. Basically.
Exactly. Now, so one of the things, and there's a lot, we could go really deep in containers and it would probably bore a lot of people. But you have to remember, containers originally, when they were kind of thought up and designed, they were designed to be, basically just a spin up and gone. They weren't designed to be a persistent or consistent type of thing. It was, I'm going to spin it up to do one particular thing at this particular time, and then it's going to disappear, never to be seen again, or maybe only called once in a blue moon. Now we've kind of moved to that next generation where we're still holding on to some of our legacy heritage, and we're saying, wait a minute, I want that container enablement and I want that easy deployment and that scalability of it. But I have, back to our other conversation, I have lots of data. Mm-hmm. I have this persistency of data, or I have databases now that I want to leverage and access as part of this. So I need that consistency tie-in or that persistency of data with that container. So they've kind of morphed and modified, and there's different versions of containers, but that infrastructure is still a key factor of it. And as we continue to move forward, we're going to see more and more development along those lines and how people leverage and utilize their existing infrastructure and the way that they grow that container utilization. When we look at IBM software, for example, one of the early indications was that almost all of IBM software now is being either rewritten or is currently in the process of being rewritten to be containerized, to be able to run as a container. And you're seeing that more and more with other vendors and stuff as well.
Right. And that was one of my questions is, kind of when I first heard containers, that term, I guess it's been over a year now, and try to dig into it. It sounded like that world really lived inside of that, I'll call it, internal software development shop, a coding, if you have a team of people coding applications or modifying applications, or maybe you sell applications, it seems like a great tool for that environment. But as I'm learning more and more, it sounds like a lot of these main system providers, so the people who actually manufacture software.
Yes.
It sounds like they're also investing, whether it's IBM or other, manufacturers out there of different applications, they're also investing in containers. And so it sounds like the whole market is kind of starting to shift towards this, kind of like everything at one point was either VMware supported or not. It sounds like we're kind of starting to tip in that direction on other applications.
Well, and think about why, though. I mean, we all carry a computer in our pockets nowadays. Everything is how can I fit it into an app? And that's kind of the same mindset to a container. You want something that can be separated from, I don't need the physical big bulky servers, and I don't need all the infrastructure to really have it. It's portable. I can move it where I need it to be. And if it's on-prem, then I've got the pieces and parts to support it. Or I can move it to the cloud if I need to move it to the cloud, or I can develop in one place and vice versa and stuff. And that's really been a lot of the mindset behind the software vendors saying, look, we need to take our applications and make them into containerized support so that we can fit in those microservices type of world.
So it sounds like whether I want containers or not, they're going to start showing up on my doorstep if I'm responsible for IT.
Absolutely, they are. And if you have any kind of homegrown applications and stuff that you're working with and your developers, they're probably going to very much be going down that that side. And of course, from our perspective, there's a lot of excitement around it because IBM acquired Red Hat and stuff. So that really gives us a big foot in the door and really helping us to move forward in a lot of the things that we were doing with containers and from a storage perspective and other things. So a lot of synergies there between, IBM and of course Red Hat with, OpenShift and all those and stuff. So it's an exciting time. As you said, it's one of the things I'm really excited about. It's one of the things I see a lot of customers starting to go to. Again, we've seen it, already deployed kind of in the larger, Fortune 1000 customers type of thing. But now you're starting to see it go down into that, mom and pop shops type of thing. They're starting to look at, okay, well, how can I better utilize my environment and stuff? I've got this infrastructure. Maybe I'm looking at saving in software licensing costs for OS or things like that. Can containers help me move in that direction and stuff?
Yeah. So what do I need to do to be prepared? So if I'm responsible for technology and containers are coming, and I don't know much about them, or I'm still trying to learn to get my hands around this whole topic, are there kind of some practical steps I need to do to kind of be ready for whatever's coming next?
That's a good question. So obviously, leveraging your resources that you have, your business partner that you work with and stuff, reaching out to them, asking the appropriate questions of, what's available in containers and stuff. The other thing is picking a vendor like IBM, for example, that's doing a lot of development in these internet cloud packs and stuff, that's got a lot of this stuff already pulled together and stuff. If I'm just now starting to look at deploying, it's kind of the wild, wild west out there, so to speak. Most of the stuff is being, done at a very, very geeky type of level and stuff. A lot of it's all command line and stuff. So trying to figure out where to get into it and where to be involved at. There's, user groups and things like that you can leverage. There's education that's out there. But really starting off at the basics of talking to your business partner and saying, look, this is where I'm thinking about, or I want to know more about this, and what can it really help me do going forward? Okay.
So I'll kind of close with this, the forward-looking kind of that next round of investment, and I know there's some announcements coming up here in a few months, about the same time we should be releasing this podcast. So kind of what is I'll say the near term on containers look like?
Near term on containers, when you're looking at it from most customers' perspective, is look to, where Red Hat's gone. Red Hat really, in Kubernetes, they kind of control a lot of that market space. That OpenShift platform is really kind of becoming the standard. Now that's according to, other outside leaders. That's not coming from you and not coming from me. Right. They're kind of saying that that's becoming the platform of choice. So looking at what Red Hat's got coming out here in the April timeframe and stuff with the new release of OpenShift, looking at how IBM's leveraged that CSI driver and stuff, the container support driver and stuff. Those are things that you're going to see a lot more on that here in the next coming months and stuff. And that would probably be an area that I would look at. So, if I was looking if I owned a business and I was looking at software and things to look at, OpenShift, Ansible, Red Hat, those type of things would be areas that I would start to be looking at, maybe playing in my environment.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us and kind of doing an intro on containers. It sounds like there's going to be a lot to learn, and it sounds like there's going to be even more to learn as this whole thing develops and matures, as any other product does in the marketplace. And we'll probably need to do another one of these maybe in 6 to 9 months or whatever, kind of get the update. But for today, we're going to go ahead and close today's session of Enterprise Tech Spotlight. So thank you for joining us, Tony. Thank you again for joining us for these three sessions.
Thank you for having me.
And we look forward to you joining us next time.